Welcome, all of you, to the 5th Global Summit. It's only been a year and a half since we last met in Paris. Great to see many familiar faces in the room. I think most of you haven't aged very much. Good look. Good to see many new faces as well. Welcome to OGP. When we met in Paris in late 2016, the world had just woken up to a new dawn in the US, to Brexit, to Duterte, and to a wave of populism. With challenges of migration and inequality, trade wars and real wars, populism and the decline of democracy. Have your pick amongst these challenges that are feeding into the discontent and the anxiety of people. Democratically elected demagogues ride the waves of these anxieties, further fueling them. They promise better lives. They promise bolstered national identities. But what they really bring into office is the idea that if you win the election, you can do whatever you want. If you win the election, you can, without pain and without apology, advance the agenda you want for yourself, your friends, and perhaps the voters. The winner takes it all. These democratically elected populists, they claim the spaces of democracy. They appropriate the language we use. And they also sort of take an idea of polarization to the core of what we're all about. Us versus them. The us can get now what they want because they won the elections. The them, perhaps they can take what they want next time when the elections happen. But they probably won't, because in the meantime, the election rules will have changed. This I win, I decide approach challenges the established principle that whoever takes office, whoever is in power, represents the interests of all. It undermines the values of inclusion and participation that are at the core of OGP. The belief that a constructive exchange of different perspectives, even if uncomfortable and contradicting, are helpful. They help us better understand each other, and they help find acceptable compromise. Where there is trust and respect, it can be fruitful to have conflict. But in a context of mistrust and fear, different perspectives, different views can be easily dismissed as being not credible, not relevant, not loyal. And that's where today's trend touches on the core tenets of what OGP is all about. Inclusion, dialogue, participation. Although hard, they are essential. The belief that actively engaging citizens will not just make government better, it makes society better for all of us. So perhaps we should no longer speak of open versus closed government. Instead, we should speak of governments that are moving towards exclusion and a focus on delivery for some, versus those that are inclusive and focus on delivery for all. From day one, civil society has been the primary source of energy and innovation of OGP. You have helped shape and deliver this partnership, often against the odds of political and financial and civic space. We just saw the results of the civil society survey, and those are good results, but they also raise questions. Are we ambitious enough in our asks? Are we inclusive enough in our conversations? Are we as civil society playing the role we need to play? And perhaps most importantly, are we collectively delivering for society the reforms that are most needed? We're asking governments to be more transparent and accountable and responsive. But the governments are turning it around. They're challenging us on our own transparency and accountability. They challenge us even more on our credibility, our representativeness, our legitimacy. And although these accusations probably are very often politically motivated, there probably is also some truth in it. If people see progressive idealism as elitism, if they no longer trust institutions, including civil society and media, if politicians that are polarized, that have this I win, I decide approach, win the popular vote, what does that tell us? We here in the room are not just the victims of shrinking civic space. I think we should critically assess our own role in the mess we find ourselves in and take responsibility for getting us out of here. The ask to examine our own legitimacy is not going to go away. So what we need to do is really step up our game and get better in transparency and accountability ourselves. We should become leaders of excellence where it comes to engaging citizens in government, in society. Not because we're being challenged, but because there's value in reconnecting and regrounding. So as a small thought experiment, let's think through what our role, our OGP could look like in 5 years from now. For me, the basics are easy. Let's be much more open about who we are, about what our agenda is and why, who runs us and funds us. Let's be domestically accountable and non-partisan. That should cover the T and the A of OGP, but what about the P? The P of participation. If the ambition of open government is to bring citizens back into the heart of government, and that's what we're asking for, then our ambition as civil society should be to support that effort, including bringing back people into the heart of civil society. And I see 3 opportunities. The first, we should make sure to anchor our agenda in local needs and local priorities. We have to be able to much better explain why our so-called elite agenda really is a people's agenda. Second, we should do much more on inclusive citizen action. People want to be heard and involved, and civil society in OGP has been really good in creating opportunities for citizen engagement and government responsiveness. We should raise our game in creating these opportunities, creating opportunities for dialogue and action by ordinary citizens, inside and outside OGP, and across ideological divides. Third, I think we should really start tapping into the energy of citizen movements and help them turn that energy into long-term reform. Citizens in countries as diverse as South Korea and Armenia have bravely pushed for change. The people in South Africa and Guatemala have made their president go away. The people of Romania and Malaysia have unmasked corruption. These citizen movements are really good in channeling the frustration of people, in broadcasting what people don't want to see. But what they're less good at, what they're really less good at, is turning that energy into action. And that's where we as civil society can come in. So let's connect to the citizen movements and help turn that short-term energy into long-term change. Business as usual for us might mean being out of business soon. So I think the next 5 years as a community, we should really invest to innovate, facilitate, and advocate opportunities for direct engagement of citizens to shape and strengthen the societies they live in, turning polarization and anger into participation and action. We will still have a role to play to provide checks and balances, to be supportive and annoying at the same time, to lend a hand and hold feet to the fire. The good news is we collectively have an enormous amount of examples of what that should look like. We have created countless inspiring examples of how you can bring back citizens into government. We have results to share. The challenge is, examples are just the first step. So the question I want to send you home with is this one. How can we reinvent and recharge ourselves to be fit for purpose for the future? Next time we meet, I want us to be bursting with fresh energy, with new ideas, with reclaimed legitimacy, because we will collectively have invested in inclusion and participation, creating opportunities for citizens to engage with society, making the case powerfully to government, to people, and to ourselves by including citizens is the logical next step. In open, inclusive, responsive government, one that delivers for the often competing priorities of citizens, by creating opportunities for dialogue and compromise, will make government and civil society more credible. I wish you a great Civil Society Day and an even better summit. Thank you.